Good morning. Welcome to Morning at NTV. If you're just joining in, you're really late, but you're just in time for Take Note. The hashtag is Morning at NTV, and joining me in studio today is two gentlemen. Well, to talk about the Mkutano 2018. It's a conversation. It's a platform for good conversations. But what type of conversations? First is the founder of DERO and the curator of the economic Mkutano, and that is Bikado.
Yes.
Ofungi.
Yes.
I really don't like getting people's names wrong.
That's perfect.
So we'll stick to David?
Yes.
Great. And I also have, I'm not sure, this is a mouthful, so I'm going to go with former journalist with the Financial Times. We're going to go with, from JK Associates, Joel Chibazo. Hi. Since you don't really like to get as much of a profile in, you're very humble. Painfully humble, Joel. Painfully humble. Good morning.
Good morning.
It looks like an afternoon here in studios with the lights on.
Feels like
it feels like it. So, you are a wealth of information. He's really painfully humble, is he not?
I don't know about that, but you know one or two things. It's called, it comes with age.
It comes with age. Great. I look forward to being like that. So we're talking about the Mkutano 2018.
Yes.
It's the first of its kind, or it's the first taking a conversation on the economy in a different direction. First, let's start with what Mkutano actually is.
I suppose, thanks Flavia. So we need to explain, given that there's a high deficit in Swahili knowledge in our country, what Mkutano means. So it's a gathering for a purpose. It's inspired by how back in the day when there was an opportunity or problem in the village, everyone sat around and dealt with it. But in this case, we are having a discussion first on the economy, and I think the principle about it is trying to take it out of that single lane where there is only one constituent at the table, perhaps the policymakers and academics. The economy is inherently about people.
Yes.
It's about the consumer, it's about the provider of capital, it's about the business person. There's influence by, with technology right now. So we think that we are certainly not the first people to try and get people to discuss the economy, but we have the robust spectrum of constituents who drive the wheel of the economy. So I think that's where we have a bit of a difference.
Okay, so are we just addressing access to capital and financial services for this one? Or is it an array of, you said technology as well, so
yes.
The use of technology. What are you highlighting in this one?
That's a good point. So my background is in the capital markets, so we have, over the past 12 years, dealt with stocks, Uganda Securities Exchange, and bonds. And we all know that there's been a little bit of a slowdown in activity. The last IPO we had was in 2012 with Omeme. So we need to address why that's not getting more traction. And I think one thing that we need to explain to the market is that the capital markets is inherently linked to economic growth because it's an alternative way of businesses or for businesses to get capital, growth capital that does not have the rigidity of the bank. But in this day and age, you can't have a discussion about finance without technology. We know all about the enabling progress that has been instigated by mobile money, transfers. Now you can apply for a loan.
There's so many innovations actually,
yes,
and by Ugandans.
Precisely. So we're trying to have the discussion around investment. There's investment clubs that have capital, nowhere to put it. We want to bring these people around the table. That's why all those little segments need to be put together.
Joel, you have been on such panels with a panelist or moderator. I'm concerned for this specific one, who are we talking to? Because when you say business in Uganda and those who are investing, it's a whole array. You have startups, you have SMEs, you have everyone. So who is this conversation? It's valuable for everyone, but in different phases. But who are you directly talking to with this conversation?
Well, the idea is that you speak to the whole broad range of business. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody will fit in. Yes. For instance, I could be sort of a trader working at the Kampala
border, right?
Yes.
Or border, right? You see, it might actually not resonate with me at that stage, but somehow through a lot of other activity, it comes through.
It trickles down.
It trickles down. So the idea really is that, that person also may have a look. They may not fully understand everything, but at least they will know that there is something going on. And maybe that border person actually has aspirations. How do you know they don't want to one day list a company? So at least they know that, one, there is such a thing as listing. Yes. Two, there's alternatives in getting finance. And three, there are people that can help you make it happen if there is a solid sort of basis for your business proposal. So although you're speaking, and it might look as if it's a sort of a small select group
that will understand it and benefit in short term.
In the short term, the idea is that it resonates on a whole wide range of platforms and people. I've always been quite inspired by the amount of knowledge that our people have. And, we sometimes think that, that are really educated people are the ones who know. Don't ever believe that. A guy with his money is very well educated.
If we're talking about alternative access to capital and finance, what's not really a misconception, but what's the most unused alternative to finance with this market?
Look, I think the cycle of capitalizing a business follows a fairly predictable path, and it's laced with a lot of landmines. I think the first port of call, so to speak, is friends and family. But we are supposed to go through several intermediaries before you start speaking to the bank, because the bank is essentially lending you other people's deposits. It's regulated by a central authority, yes, the Central Bank of Uganda, who I'm happy to say are involved in supporting the Mkutano. So the intermediary aspect of maybe Joel has an extra £10,000, which I'm sure he does, to provide to a business is not quite there. So that risk capital where I'm not sure I'm going to get a return, but I'm banking on you, on that belief that you're going to build a business.
Yes.
There's some rigidity in that segment, and I think the capital markets follows that space where with a listing you can tap into pension funds, investment clubs, or people with excess money to capitalize your business without specifically knowing whether you're going to be a success. Amazon is one of those cases where who knew in 2007 or 1997 that it was going to be this giant, but people took a punt, and the rest, as they say, is history. We need to propagate that culture here.
Yes. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the thing, just to build on to what Ricardo has said, is that what all of us want to invest for the future. For some, it is for school fees. For some, it is for retirement. But we want to at least have some surety that I'll have some funds available. And so it is by having this kind of conversation, it is starting to get people thinking as to how do you start. I can put my money in a building, I can go and grow soya, I can go and do that. On the other hand, I might have a little money that I can put perhaps in a market, maybe invest, and that will grow. So the thing is that we should be looking at the range of products that people can look at and invest in. The other side of that, the flip side of that, is that it means also that if you're a business, you will look for money. Because, for instance, in this country, interest rates are terribly high. So that can make the business very difficult. However, are there alternative sources of finance? And how can I get some of those sources to enable my business to grow? And that means, on the other side, for the business, they also have to be sort of regulated, or rather, if they're not formally regulated, what they do need is to show that they are performing well. So you have to have books of accounts.
Some sort of structure.
And have a structure. Yes. But then you see this kind of conversation forces that to say, you know what, if I want to raise money, I better go to the accountant, who will then at least show this is what I
know your business.
It's not just it's knowing the business, but also structuring the business.
Yes, definitely. So from what I see here, you have everyone from regulators to policymakers, you have businesses, you have professional bodies. I'm not sure, when you have a collective conversation like this, I'm wary of the fact that Ugandans look at that and say, oh, another economic forum. Oh, there we go. Oh, discussions that end on paper.
Yeah.
Have you thought that far to take this conversation away? How are we going to see this any different than any other conversation
that's a good point. So I think there's two responses to this. I think we are extremely gratified to have validation by a spectrum of strong industry players, banks, regulator, pension funds, etc. But one of the reasons why we've reached out to Joel is that he brings that international dimension. He has experience with the World Economic Forum, etc. And what we see carved into their models is the aspect of continuity. What happens when the last projector is turned down or the last cocktail drink is sipped is that you need to take inspiration from those discussion points and inform research papers that are circulated to the people who are there or the constituents, the broader pool of people who are interested in this. We need to take this document to the PS in the Ministry of Finance or ICT to say, hey, this is where the market wants to be. This is what the numbers are saying.
Yes.
The next time we have a budget, there has to be a concession on this side or adjust your focus on this one. So we don't stop tomorrow. We are going to continue this after the last person leaves the hall. Okay,
so but if, as we wind up, this conversation, if when you have all that, you have the numbers fine, you have who they should be focusing on, you know, what the policy should read. I mean, who's then more accountable than the other? Who starts the ball rolling? You know, who sets it in motion? Because you're going to tell me it's the regulator or you're going to tell me it's the professional bodies. Who's actually in charge of starting it? Then the rest fall in line.
I'm going to start. I think Joe will finish this. There's a reason why we use the term curator.
Yes.
We don't own the concept, we're curating it.
Yes.
So I think what is clear about matters economic is that it's a wheel that is turned by several spokes. Yes. Now the contribution spoke-wise may differ depending on one sector to another. Infrastructure, for example, energy, roads, it's predominantly government. But when you come to the capital markets, government has to enable policy and then it's up to the private sector to drive it. So there's different ways of balancing it. But what we think is critical is that in the past, it has been, this discussion has lacked very critical aspects of it. And I think that's what we're bringing in to turn the wheel.
I think just to sort of finish on is that two things. One, follow up and follow through is really important. But I think it's old-fashioned to think of it in terms of a single person being the custodian of the conversation.
If one spark in the wheel is not working, we can't really go around.
But somehow the wheel could still turn. And the thing is,
it's like driving to the gas station with a flat tire.
Yeah. So the thing is this, it won't just be one wheel, it will one spoke or whatever. What will happen is that the conversation has started, but it creates the framework under which certain things can happen for the following year, for the year on, or whatever. It's if the conversation doesn't start at all, then, you know, so that's when the problem comes through. Sure. So that's what is happening with this.
Okay, great. As we wind up, just to tell us when it's happening, how we can be involved and what to expect.
So we have a good lineup. It's happening tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the 15th of May. Kickoff is at 7:30 in the morning at the Kampala Serena Conference Center. We have two fascinating keynotes coming in from overseas, one from Nigeria, one from South Africa, bringing the experiences, and an incredible lineup of Ugandans on panels. Joel, we've mentioned his role. So we're excited about it. We are keen to have the public come through, or at least follow us on Twitter. And let's take the lessons from this and do it better next year. So keen to have everyone involved. Thank you so much. Founder of Dero and the curator for the Economic Mkutano, Bikado Ofungi, and I'm really trying, JK Associates.
Yes.
Yes.
The boss.
The boss, Joel Chivazo. And as we wind up, remember the hashtag is Mkutano 2018, Mkutano 2018. Yes. Just in case you want to follow that conversation as it happens tomorrow. Don't be left out. As I said, it's a conversation. It's just a start, so be part of it. Our hashtag is morning at NTV. I'm Flavia Tumsime. I'm going to hand it to Andrew Chamagara, who's on the ground. There you are, in the streets. You can take it over as you say good morning to everyone.
We are coming to you live from Chireka. Like we said earlier on, there is a trailer that actually fell down the side. So the traffic here is a little messed up. If you're coming from Mkutano, just change the direction. But anyhow, today I've learned a lot of things when it comes to how men, we must be involved with maternal health. It's our responsibility. The same role we play while we're making them pregnant, it should cut across during antenatal, even after childbirth. I'm so honored that we had this conversation and can keep it going online, on Twitter, on Facebook, and it all has to be Morning at NTV.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And that winds up a look at Morning at NTV. Catch you tomorrow, which will be the start of Ramadan. All the lessons that you need for the month will be right here on the show. Good morning.